It's 4 a.m. in a cramped tenement in Manchester, 1850. You wake up on a straw mattress, the rough material irritating your skin. The room is dark, but you can make out the shapes of 6 others sleeping around you, your family if you're lucky, or strangers if you're not. The air is thick with the stench of sewage and coal smoke, making each breath a struggle. Your chest heaves as you cough up black phlegm, a grim reminder of the coal dust that's slowly killing you. Your 14-hour shift at the textile mill starts in an hour, but you're already exhausted. Welcome to the industrial era, where surviving the day is a gamble. Think your modern life is tough? You have no idea. Imagine trading your smartphone for a sledgehammer, your air-conditioned office for a sweltering factory floor, and your antibiotics for nothing. From 1760 to 1900, Britain and America transformed from quiet farmlands into industrial giants. The cost? Millions of lives ground down by the relentless machine of progress. Your day begins with a cup of water from a communal pump. Water that's likely contaminated with cholera or typhoid. You sip it cautiously, knowing it could be your last. Breakfast is a crust of stale bread, dry and tasteless, barely enough to sustain you through the grueling day ahead. Then it's off to the factory, where the air is so thick with cotton fibers that it feels like breathing through a wool blanket. The noise of the machines is deafening, a constant roar that drowns out thought. The heat is oppressive, sweat dripping down your back as you work. Lunch is a brief respite, 5 minutes to scarf down more stale bread and perhaps a sip of weak tea. There's no time for rest. The overseer is always watching, ready to dock your pay for the slightest infraction. Back to work, your hands moving mechanically, your mind numb from the monotony and fear. As the day drags on, your thoughts turn to the miners like John Smith, who risk their lives daily in the coal pits. In 1866, the Oaks Colliery disaster claimed 361 lives, many of them children as young as 10. Their stories are etched into your memory, a constant reminder of the dangers that lurk in every corner of this industrial hellscape. Yet, the demand for coal never stops, and neither do the deaths. Finally, after 14 hours of relentless labour, you stumble home, your body aching, your spirit broken. Dinner is whatever scraps you can afford, often just more bread or a thin soup. Sleep comes quickly, but it's restless, filled with nightmares of machines and mines. And tomorrow, it all begins again. And the worst part? No one cares. You're just a cog in the machine, easily replaced by the next desperate soul. Your life means nothing to the factory owners. Your death would be just another line in the ledger. In fact, they probably have your replacement lined up already. The Industrial Revolution was a time that reshaped society, but at a horrific human cost. From the 1760s to the early 1900s, steam power, factories and cities boomed. Progress surged, but for most, life was a brutal fight against conditions that would break anyone today. It was hard. It was a relentless attack on body and soul, unimaginable to us now. We like to think we would handle the past with our modern smarts. But the industrial era's harsh truths show how far we've come in just a few generations. Clean water, safe jobs, decent food, healthcare. These were fantasies for our ancestors. These facts provide a new perspective on our complaints. They remind us of the fragility of our comforts. Forget the industry giants. This is about the unseen millions, whose shattered bodies built our world. Families packed into filthy tenements, sharing one room with no air or privacy. Kids as young as 5 slaved 12 to 16 hours in deadly factories. Their tiny size made them ideal for cleaning moving machines, a task that often cost limbs or lives. Meanwhile, the rich lived in luxury, their wealth rooted in this misery. The class divide bred a hopelessness that would crush us today. Let's walk through a few deadly challenges that would likely break you within hours. Your morning starts with a scratchy throat. In your time, a mild annoyance. In the industrial era, potentially a death sentence. In these overcrowded cities, disease is common. It's practically inescapable. First, there's cholera, the terror of industrial cities. This waterborne killer causes violent vomiting and diarrhea that can kill you within hours of the first symptoms. Contaminated water sources and a lack of knowledge about germs often led to outbreaks that wiped out entire neighborhoods. Next is tuberculosis, the White Plague. This airborne disease thrives in the damp, overcrowded conditions where you're living. It spreads through coughing and attacks the lungs of malnourished individuals most severely. It was the leading cause of death in industrial cities, slowly drowning victims in their own blood. Typhus comes from lice in your shared bed, and typhoid comes from the contaminated water pump down the street. Both are waiting for their chance. And that small cut on your hand, without antibiotics, it could lead to blood poisoning and death within days. What about medical care? Hospitals mainly help the wealthy. This forces workers like you to depend on home remedies or unqualified doctors. Their treatments? Bloodletting to balance your humours, mercury poisoning disguised as medicine, and surgeries performed without anesthesia or understanding of infection. Now for the statistic that still shocks historians. 57% of working-class children in Manchester died before age 5 in 1840. Your children's chances of survival would be essentially a coin flip. If you think the COVID pandemic was terrifying, imagine facing a world where a simple cut could kill you. Common water could strike you down within hours, and the cure might be just as deadly as the disease. When you're lucky, you've survived the morning. Now it's time for work. If you can call a death trap a workplace. This is your job at the factory, where your shift isn't 8 hours, it's 12 to 16 hours with maybe one short break. Forget OSHA regulations, forget workers' compensation, forget bathroom breaks. See those massive machines? Notice something missing. Guards, safety mechanisms, emergency stops, none exist. The spinning jenny is changing textile production, but it also catches loose clothing and pulls workers into its mechanisms. The deafening noise means you won't hear danger approaching. But most shocking to modern eyes, the children. As young as 5 years old, they're not in school, they're here. Their small bodies made them perfect for crawling under running machinery to retrieve dropped items or clean accumulated dust. Their tiny hands untangle threads in spinning machines that don't stop for maintenance. When they fall asleep from exhaustion after 14-hour shifts, overseers strike them awake. The factory owner doesn't see you as a human being deserving of dignity or safety. You're a replaceable cog in his industrial machine. If you're injured, and many are daily, you're immediately terminated. No workers' compensation, no health care, no safety net of any kind. Your family's survival depends entirely on your ability to keep working, regardless of conditions. Men with missing fingers are common sights. Women who survive hair injuries from machinery return to work, wearing caps to hide their scars. Children with crushed limbs become beggars, having lost their economic value. The economic reality is brutal. No work means no food, regardless of the danger. Still thinking your boss is tough? Industrial workers faced injury or death every day. They received no compensation if they were maimed, and their children often worked beside them. The psychological toll of knowing a moment's inattention could kill you or your child. Hour after hour, day after day, would break most modern people within a single shift. Your shift has ended, and you're headed home, though calling it that would be generous. In the industrial city, rapid urbanization has created housing conditions that would violate every modern building code. In New York City by the 1890s, 2/3 of the population, 2.3 million people, were crammed into tenements. In London, families huddled in damp cellar dwellings that regularly flooded when it rained. Your apartment is a single room shared with multiple families. Privacy is non-existent. A family of 6 might live in a corner marked only by a hanging sheet. Air barely circulates through the one small window, if you're lucky enough to have one. The walls run with condensation from so many bodies breathing in such a confined space. Your bed, likely just a straw mattress on the floor, is shared with siblings or other family members and provides a breeding ground for lice and bedbugs. Step outside and the assault on your senses intensifies. Without sewage systems, human waste is dumped directly into streets or nearby waterways. That distinctive smell? It's a mixture of human excrement, industrial waste, and the bodies of animals left to rot where they fall. During the summer months, the stench becomes so unbearable that anyone with means flees the city. The air you breathe is heavy with coal smoke from many factories and fireplaces, creating a constant haze that blocks sunlight and fills your lungs with soot. Respiratory diseases are so common they're considered normal. Sunlight is nature's disinfectant, but it rarely reaches the narrow alleys between buildings or gets through the thick layer of industrial smog. Even your food offers no comfort. After a long work day, your body needs food, but the industrial era dinner table isn't very comforting. Look at this typical meal: a chunk of dark bread and boiled potatoes. If you're lucky, there might be a sliver of cheese or a spoonful of gruel. Meat? That's a luxury you might taste once a week, if at all. The average industrial worker consumed barely enough calories to sustain their physically demanding jobs, creating a perpetual state of mild starvation. Nutritional deficiencies were universal. Rickets from vitamin D shortage, scurvy from lack of vitamin C, and anemia from iron deficiency. These weren't medical curiosities. They were everyday realities that weakened your body's defenses against the diseases we discussed earlier. Perhaps most shocking to modern sensibilities, beer was commonly consumed by children. This has nothing to do with parental negligence. It was survival. The fermentation process killed many harmful germs in water. This made beer safer to drink than water from dirty wells or rivers. Tea also provided a safer alternative since the water was boiled, but it was expensive and less common among the working class. Chalk wasn't the only thing in bread. Alum was also used to make flour whiter, but it caused stomach issues. Milk was watered down and sometimes mixed with plaster of Paris to restore its appearance. Candles of sheep fat were dipped in tea, and lead chromate was used to give mustard its colour. Each meal delivered a small dose of poison, along with minimal nutrition. Even as the Industrial Revolution produced more food than ever before, the working class suffered from persistent hunger and malnutrition. Their weakened bodies became perfect hosts for tuberculosis, typhoid, and other infectious diseases. Most people today enjoy safe food, so they would find constant hunger and fatigue from lack of nutrients very odd. Imagine feeding your children beer because it's safer than water. Meanwhile, their bread is packed with chalk and chemicals instead of real nutrients. Your body, accustomed to modern nutrition, would rapidly deteriorate under these conditions. Your immune system has never faced these historical pathogens, so it would give you little protection against the diseases caused by malnutrition. Evening arrives and you receive your day's wages, a few coins that barely cover your family's basic needs. In the industrial era, you're not just poor, you exist in a state of perpetual economic terror. There are no unemployment benefits, no health insurance, no workers' compensation, no retirement plans. The modern financial safety nets we take for granted simply don't exist. If you wake up too ill to work tomorrow, your employer won't provide sick leave, they'll simply replace you. One missed day means no income for food. 1 week of illness could mean eviction. A serious injury that prevents you from working doesn't qualify you for disability payment. It can leave your whole family in poverty. You might end up in a workhouse where families are split up and face harsh conditions. The rigid class system offers virtually no escape. Your birth determines your destiny with cruel efficiency. The wealthy elite live in a parallel universe of comfort and privilege, while the impoverished majority face a life of grinding hardship with little hope for improvement. This sharp contrast brings a strong feeling of hopelessness that would crush the spirit of many people today who expect progress. Education, the great equalizer in modern society, remains largely inaccessible to the working class. Even basic literacy is a luxury when children must work to help support their families. Without education, generations remain trapped, impoverished, unable to access better opportunities. Your children's futures are essentially determined at birth, a reality that would devastate any modern parent. The economic injustice extends further for women and children. Women earn approximately half of men's already meager wages for the same work. Children earn even less, often just pennies, for a full day of dangerous labor. This wage inequality is not illegal. It's the accepted norm. built into the very structure of industrial society. Every day requires impossible choices. Food or rent, medicine or coal for heat, new shoes for work, or repairs to keep rain from leaking through the roof. The constant stress from these decisions adds pressure. There's no room for mistakes and no support from institutions. This creates a heavy mental burden that few people today have faced. In our world, a sick day means missing a Zoom call. In the industrial era, it meant your family might not eat that week or ever again. The absence of any economic safety net created a level of vulnerability that most modern people have never experienced. Every day was a high-stakes gamble with your family's survival, and one stroke of bad luck could erase everything. Ask yourself, could you handle that level of constant economic terror? We've walked through the individual challenges of industrial life. Diseases, unsafe work conditions, poor housing, lack of nutrition, and economic weakness. But here's what would really break you, facing all of these at once with no end and no hope for improvement. In our modern world, we might face one serious challenge, perhaps financial trouble or health issues, but rarely do we confront every aspect of survival simultaneously. We have support systems, knowledge, and the belief that things can improve. The industrial worker had none of these buffers. Each day brought not just one threat, but an onslaught of physical dangers, psychological stresses, and emotional traumas that compounded each other. The physical toll alone would crush most modern bodies within days. Your muscles, unaccustomed to constant physical labor, would fail. Your lungs, never exposed to such pollutants, would struggle. Your digestive system, adapted to clean food and water, would rebel. Your immune system, never challenged by these historical pathogens, would offer little protection. But it's the psychological impact that would destroy you. Modern life has conditioned us to believe in safety nets, in rights, in fairness, in the possibility of improvement. The industrial worker knew none of these comforts. They existed in a state of perpetual uncertainty, where one minor misfortune could destroy everything they loved. This constant stress created a psychological burden that few modern minds could bear. Even the emotional supports we take for granted were often absent. Families had little time for bonding as work separated the home and workplace. Community ties weakened under the strain of industrial demands. The natural human connections that help us endure hardship were frayed by the very structure of industrial life. This isolation would compound every other challenge, leaving you to face this brutal world largely alone. Now, for the most humbling realization, millions of real people endured this reality not for a few days, but for their entire lives. The faces you see on the screen lived through conditions we can barely imagine. And rather than breaking, many found the strength to fight for improvements. Labor movements, social reforms, and public health advances came from their suffering and resistance. These efforts helped create our safer modern world. Every comfort you enjoy today exists because someone fought for it. This includes safety rules, clean water standards, and labor protections. They endured tough conditions and pushed for change. It marked the slow and painful birth of the modern world we now take for granted. Next time you complain about your job or living conditions, remember this. Your daily life with clean water, safe food, and regulated workplaces seems like luxury to your ancestors from 150 years ago. They fought to create a world where their descendants could live with dignity and security. We are those descendants. If this peek into industrial life opened your eyes, hit subscribe for more historical insights that link our present to the past.